Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Susie and my channel is The Small Art Society. Welcome if this is your first time here, and if this is not the first video of mine that you're watching, welcome back. It's really great to have you here. Today we're going to be doing a quick run through of the second episode of a series that I've started on my channel called Shop My Art Supplies with Me. So in this series, I'm going digging into my art supplies and I'm selecting some items that I haven't really used very often or I'm not too familiar with. For today's episode, I've chosen the Faber-Castell Artist Pitt Pens in pastel. The colors that I have here are light yellow glaze, coral, light cobalt blue, pink madder lake, light phthalo green, and lilac. Now these are some supplies that I really have no experience with, so using them today is going to be very interesting. I decided to pair them up with some regular colored pencils. This is the Artist's Loft brand, which I believe is a brand that is an American brand. And these colored pencils are just come in the standard colors, so white, yellow, orange, red, light green, light blue, light brown, dark brown, and black. Now my experience with these colored pencils is that they're not very intense in color, so it's going to be interesting to see how they work together. I'm going to be drawing an avocado today using these supplies together. I initially was going to start off with the colored pencils, and then I realized that actually I needed to use the pastel Pitt pens in order to get that kind of intense base through first. And this was a really interesting exercise because I went in without first doing a pencil sketch or some kind of pencil outline, which is not something that I usually do. I've been trying to lean into that a little bit more with my art, and I'm enjoying the process of doing that. Sometimes it feels a little bit unsafe and scary because having a pencil outline gives me a little bit of control over what I'm doing, but I'm leaning into that fear with this process. So I went in straight with the light phthalo green Pitt pen, and then I went back in January, or maybe November or October actually was when I purchased these, and I did kind of like a little swatch so that I could see how the colors glazed over each other, and that was really helpful. So that previous page that you saw was me referring back to that to see how I could get that kind of like dark outline on the avocado. And here it is again, and I'm trying to figure out what colors I can use to make the pit of the avocado. So that was a really helpful exercise. I love doing that with all of my art supplies because it gives me an understanding of how they work and how the colors interact and how I might be able to use them. And because I have a set of pastels in these Pitt pens, that almost makes it a little bit more difficult because I don't really have the standard colors and I need to get a little bit more creative in my color mixing, basically. Now, that's not really a problem, it's not an issue whatsoever, but it does mean that having that reference page there that I can refer back to and figure out what colors I need to layer over each other to get the right kind of shade and the right tone is really, really helpful. So at this point, I had finished with the Pitt pens. I got the base down and I was really happy with the way it looked. I mean, it was very, very different to anything I'm used to. I paint primarily in watercolors, so I'm used to having a bit more, maybe not less vibrancy, but this was like quite vibrant, you know? And so I started going over with the colored pencils, and this is when I started to kind of have some difficulties because my colored pencils, as I mentioned, this brand that I have is not very intense, the colors. So I was going really, not very hard. I was trying not to indent the paper, but I was trying to put some pressure down to get the colors up. And I was having a very difficult time doing this. I tried with the light green, I tried with the dark green, I tried with the yellow, and you can see that it does produce a bit of effect over the pastel Pitt pens, but it really wasn't working out the way I wanted it to. Bear in mind, I haven't used these colored pencils probably in about 8 or 9 years, maybe a little bit less, maybe like 7 or 6, but it's been a long time since I've used these colored pencils. I actually purchased these because I wanted to start getting into color, and I had such a difficult time with them, probably because they're not the best quality, that I ended up purchasing a set of the Derwent watercolored pencils instead. So here you can see that, again, I'm really struggling to get any type of an effect with these pencils right now. And again, I wasn't really too surprised by this because I knew that my experience with them had previously been that they didn't really produce the effect that I wanted, but I thought that since I was pairing them with the soft pastel Pitt pens that it might work out. Here you can see I'm trying really hard to get that color on, and it's just really not coming up in a very kind of obvious way. So I decided to pull out my Derwent watercolor pencils because I know that those are going to produce a little bit more color and a bit more vibrancy to the drawing that I'm working on today. But before I could start using them and actually get into the drawing, I needed to organize them. They were out of order, and it's probably okay for most people, but for me, I needed to have them in some type of order. And not just that, I like having the little names and the colors pointing out at me. So I had to do that first. I don't know if anybody else likes to do that, but I definitely like to do that. And this is when I think things started to take a turn for the positive with this painting, with this little drawing for me. The colors immediately produced much more vibrancy, and it gave that drawing just a little bit more life. I think the pastel Pitt pens on their own created a really interesting drawing, and it was effective in the sense that you could see what I was drawing. It was very obvious that it was an avocado. When I tried with the regular colored pencils, I wanted to add a bit more vibrancy and make it a little bit more interesting and get some kind of more deeper deeps and some more interesting kind of light colors, and I just wasn't getting that effect from them. So I'm really glad that I switched to my watercolor pencils. Now this is also not a medium that I have used in a very long time. I have not used watercolored pencils in years, but I did know that these were more vibrant, so I'm really happy that I pulled them out. From my perspective, it seemed like they really kind of turned the drawing around for me, and I was very happy with that. Generally, I found that this was a really interesting experiment. I'm not familiar whatsoever with the Pitt pens, even though I purchased them. I'm happy that I'm doing this series on my channel because it's forcing me to explore within my art supplies and shop my own art supplies and get familiar with what I have and push myself to think about what I'm doing in a different way. So in that sense, it's been really effective so far. This is only episode 2. I'm going to be doing a video. It's a monthly series, so I'm going to be doing one every month. Today is our February video. I'm really looking forward to doing this because, like I said, it's pushing me to experiment with things differently, and I can actually see myself deciding to take a similar approach like this in the future. I did actually really like the base that I got down with the Pitt pens. Like I said, I'm still a little bit limited because I only have pastels, but in a way that's kind of excellent, because when you're limited in a way is when you kind of think more creatively about things, and you have to make solutions for your problems with what you already have in front of you. So instead of going out and buying a regular set of Pitt pens, I'm just going to stick with what I have and see how I can use the glazing of the colors to produce interesting colors that I might need for other things. So all in all, I had a really fun time doing this. It really pushed me to think. I wasn't on autopilot. I wasn't, usually the drawing stage is when my mind kind of has to think quite a bit. And then when I'm painting with watercolors, my instincts kind of take over. But throughout this process, I had to really think all the way through. I really had to kind of, think about what I was doing and where I was putting color down and things like that. Now, I did have one other mishap that happened to me while I was painting this avocado. You can see I'm picking up the black watercolor pencil there and doing just the outline of the avocado, going over it one more time because I wanted to get it just a little bit deeper and just a little bit richer. And very shortly you will see that as I'm coming up on the very, very end of outlining this avocado, my tip broke. And I had to finish that tiny little section off with the tiny little rest of the colored pencil that I had. But it wasn't a big deal. It was okay. Thankfully, I didn't have to do the entire outline that way. And overall, I'm really happy with this. It's very different to what I normally paint. Very, very different in terms of style. And that's it for today's episode. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a comment or dropping me a like. And if you're interested in following along with this series, then please do consider subscribing. Thanks again for stopping by, and I hope you guys have a nice day. See you in the next one.